That's all I have.
Good,
So,
thank you.
Thank you.
Facility report.
All right.
This will be a little longer.
No. As of yesterday, we had a little issue with some water coming into the building. There was a pretty heavy downpour,
Hello?
and we had issues with water coming into our roof. And it was not a little bit; it was a lot. We had water pouring out of our ceilings. There's an issue with the downspouts that are being routed into our building and going into the existing storm drains, and it just can't handle as much water as we had, and so it just overflowed. And
part of the problem is Victor actually cleaned the gutters out this summer, so the water's going where it's supposed to, and
faster.
And at the speed it's supposed to. Yeah.
So
all the water goes to one central location.
there's several different.
Okay, so there's seven different areas.
Yeah.
Okay, I was thinking it was all being concentrated in one area.
No.
Okay, yeah, there's
This happened in just 2 of the areas, where it just couldn't handle draining all that water, and it just came up through the roof or through the ceiling and found its way from the upper level all the way down to the first floor.
We'll find somewhere to go.
Did you do any damage to anything?
No, not other than ceiling tiles.
And a speaker, one of the speakers got damaged as well. But we caught, luckily we were here and we caught the MDF room, the server room, that was flooded, but they were able to stop it right away. So.
That was unusual. I heard we got 3 inches in an hour.
We got heavies.
Yeah.
They said north, right on TV.
Yeah, we were the highest. Where I was working when you were landing.
So we have DLA coming out to meet tomorrow to show them the source of the problem and see what we can do to fix it.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, summer work is just about done. Still have a few things to do, but thanks to 3 very helpful high school students from Ridgewood, we're just about there. Today was the last day for 2 of them. We still got 1 on board. And last but not least, we have all those projects that we had approved at the beginning of the year for the building are all just about complete, except for I think 1 of them, and they'll be back Saturday, and that's Permaseal leveling out the sidewalks.
Okay.
They did the section in the gated parking, and it
How'd it
turned
go?
out really good.
They're lifting them.
Yeah, they're lifting,
Nice.
and it was half the price of grinding.
Right. Sweet.
So.
I like to add one more thing I forgot that ties to facilities, our security system. We installed our cameras throughout the building. So we have 9 cameras installed, the perimeters covered, as well as the 2 entrances for the district office and for the school office. And then we added the 12 card readers so that it covers more doors of the building, including the ramp in the lower level. And then every teacher will be issued, staff member will be issued an ID card this year, a photo ID card that they use to enter into the building. So it was a successful project, and it's all complete.
Excellent.
We also added the lobby guard.
Oh, we have lobby guard to our visitor management platforms also up and running. So visitors and contractors that come into the building will be able to check in. We do the background check on them and give them a photo ID badge. So we're well ready.
Great.
Yeah, I just want to thank Patrick and Victor. They've been working so hard this summer, a lot of projects. They talk to me every day about them. Patrick talks to me in a different language. I'm not sure what he's telling me is with the tech stuff, but he sure knows what he's talking about with it. And it's been pretty amazing watching the clocks come alive and the building, just the security aspect. And we're working with the police department. That's a little bit later on the agenda. But we're working with the police department to update our crisis manual, and all these new security features will be in that new manual. So very exciting for Penoyer. Thank you.
Long overdue, thank you.
Thank you, Victor. Okay, quarterly financial report.
All right, well, our actual expenditures was about $7,300 less than what we had budgeted, so we were under budget this year, which is exciting. However, we were about $53,000 less in projected revenues than we anticipated, but we still had ended the year with a balanced budget, with money in reserve, so very, very happy with this fiscal year.
Just out of curiosity, how does that happen? The less revenue, where do we miss?
Well, you really don't. It's always an estimate of what you're going to gather from taxes and what the
People
state,
finding their taxes.
right, and what the
street
state,
assessments.
what the state funding is going to be. We're still getting some state payments in and reimbursements, so that will be credited to this next fiscal year. But you know, the budget, both on the revenue and the expenditure side, is always your best guess estimate.
Okay. Any questions?
Yay team.
All right, FOIA requests. Any comments or questions on the FOIA requests?
On that one FOIA where they're requesting home addresses,
We did not provide the home
Okay.
addresses. Thank you.
I didn't think we could do that and hoped we wouldn't. Thanks.
Something else?
Nope.
Okay. Paul Hanley. That's quick.
It's summer, come back in December.
We're just starting.
We'll talk to you at 9.
Just like show and tell.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, I have a copy. Thank you.
So my name is Paul Hanley, and I'm the Senior Vice President of the George K. Baldwin Company. And I've spent the last 26 years working with cities, counties, school districts, community colleges, rec districts, park districts, fire districts, mosquito abatement districts, all sorts of public entities, and trying to figure out what the taxpayer wants and whether it jives with what the public entity has identified as their need. And so there's a surprising number of public entities that still come up with a wish list, and then they throw it on the ballot without testing it first. And many times it fails without getting that input from the taxpayer first. And so tonight I want to describe a process that we've used hundreds of times successfully. We have an 86% track record if you jump through the 4 hoops I'm going to talk about tonight. And the case study that I'm going to share with you tonight is New Trier High School District. In New Trier in 2010, February of 2010, put a measure on the ballot, and it got crushed. So it was 35% yes, 65% no, not too different from what yours was. I think yours was like 33% yes. And they waited a few years, and then they came back. And the first thing, we'll discuss it tonight on what that is. Superintendent mentioned I have about 30 minutes. I'll try and respect your time and get through this as quickly as possible and save time for questions. So the first handout I want you to look at is this. It has the 4 numbers at the top. And so this process is broken into 4 steps. So the first step is the district does its homework, so needs assessment. The second step is the district shares that homework with the community, the taxpayers. And then the third phase is asking the community, what do you think? And most importantly, would you pay for it? So a lot of times when you test things, they say, oh, sounds great. Oh, that's great. Sounds wonderful. And then you say, oh, by the way, here's the tax impact. And they're like, heck no. So that's got to be part of it. And then lastly is the campaign. Those first 3 phases can be paid for by the district. The last phase, the campaign phase, as you know, has to be paid for by a campaign committee. Because obviously, you can't use taxpayer dollars to advocate. So I'm going to circle back and go through some of these in detail. So as far as the needs assessment, it's kind of what you did last time. You did a facilities master plan, you did all sorts of extensive work trying to figure out what your needs are. That has to obviously happen again, right? Updating that, figuring out, okay, if you address some of your health, life safety issues in advance of asking for a tax measure, what's left? One thing we want to do right away is a voter analysis. So the next times you can put something on the ballot would be your 2020 primary or 2020 presidential. November 2019, you would not be able to put a measure on the ballot. And so in these materials, I started to work on a voter analysis for you, which we'll go to in a second. So in circling back around, you got to figure out what is it that you want to eventually share with a group that I call a citizen task force. So it's oftentimes a group of business leaders, civic leaders, faith-based leaders, major property taxpayers, and others who come together to vet your proposal. I call it a citizen task force. And so the challenge that you have is, what is this kind of plan A and maybe a plan B that you want to share with this group eventually? And the plan A should be what you truly believe voters would support. It's not more, it's not less. It's what you truly believe these voters would support. And then the plan B is you dial it back even more, to the point where you're like, wow, I don't even know that it's worth putting it on the ballot. But if it passed, you'd still be pretty happy with some of the monies that would be used. In fact, I cannot have the quote in front of you, but one of you, and I think it was Philip, mentioned, had a quote in the paper. It was exactly right, where you said, if we're going to ask something, we better make sure it's really tight, and it's not way too much, but it's also not enough, because you got one time to do it. You're not going to come back in 5 years and ask again. It's one time. So I totally agree with that. This part of doing the homework, which you did before, you did like a video, you did all sorts of great pretty pictures. I call it sizzle, right? Voters want to see, what do I get for my money, for my tax dollars. You'll want to develop a core argument. Basically, what's the problem? What's the solution? What's the cost? Why is it urgent? And then most importantly, what's the value added? So 70% of your electorate don't have kids in school. So what's in it for them? We've got to figure out what that is. We recommend you come up with a key influencer database. Again, it's business leaders, civic leaders, religious leaders, major property taxpayers, the press. Kind of go down elected officials. Go down the list of those people who have a voice in this community. And from that list, you're going to look at and go, okay, who are the top 20 to 25 that we could put together for the citizen task force? Exactly what Maine 207 just went through. I'm working with them currently. They went through this whole process. They had a huge group, like 60. Okay, I'm not recommending 60. But if we get 20 to 25, that would be ideal. And what they would do is, at the first meeting, or first two meetings, you'd share all your homework with them. Here's where we've been. Voters said no. This is why we were asking this amount. We've circled back, redone our homework. Here's where we are right now. This is what we think our needs are, and here are some proposed solutions. And they vet that, and then they help you think through what should be tested district-wide. And if you do it right, you allow them to decide what is shared and tested district-wide. Okay? Versus the board. Because I have found that plans that pass are those that are the community's plan, and not the board's plan, and not the district's plan. It has to be the community's plan for this to have a chance to pass. So that's phase one. And then phase two, you share that homework with the community. It takes the form of mailers, social media, you're out making presentations, anybody who will listen, earned media. I don't know if the press is here tonight, but any articles that you get in the newspaper, etc.